Hello, my name is Lisa Thompson, and I am an Adult Safeguarding Review Chair and author. Thank you for joining this short session, which will outline the case of Terry and discuss learning which has arisen from the review of his death. Terry was a man in his late 40s when he passed away. He was a heroin user who had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, hepatitis C, and gastric problems. He had a long history of sporadic engagement with his GP. Terry's engagement with his mental health treatment plan was also sporadic, with frequently missed depot injections. Terry also declined physical health checks from the community mental health team. Terry had been living in a supported housing scheme for 4 years, and during March 2021, scheme staff raised concerns with police that he was being financially exploited by a well-known drug user. This resulted in a safeguarding referral. The scheme staff also raised a concern with adult social care that his placement was not suited to his complex needs. His care needs were then assessed during May and June 2021. On the 24th of June 2021, the scheme staff contacted adult social care regarding an injection site wound which had become infected. Terry was declining medical assistance for the wound. A multi-agency meeting was convened, however, only the scheme staff, the social worker, and Terry attended. Throughout August 2021, scheme staff continued to raise concerns about Terry's self-neglect. He had continued to decline medical assistance, despite becoming confined to his bed due to the wounds. He also continued to be financially exploited by a third party. On the 17th of September 2021, Terry was found unconscious in his room. An ambulance attended and he was found dead at the scene. A safeguarding adult review was conducted. I will now detail some of the learning from this review, which is particularly relevant to supported housing scheme providers and staff. The Social Care Institute of Excellence defines self-neglect as an extreme lack of self-care. It is sometimes associated with hoarding and may be the result of other issues such as addictions. It can include lack of self-care to an extent that it threatens personal health and safety, neglecting to care for one's personal hygiene, health, nutrition, or environment, inability to avoid harm as a result of self-neglect, failure to seek help, support, or access services to meet health and social care needs, refusal of services that could mitigate risk of harm, an unwillingness to manage one's own personal affairs. It's important to remember that self-neglect is not about someone being unable to care for themselves. Many people who come to the attention of adult social services do so because they are no longer able to perform the activities of daily living, such as attending to their personal care or nutrition. In these situations, an assessment under the Care Act and the provision of services will ensure that their needs are met. Self-neglect is when someone is unwilling, for a number of reasons, to care for themselves. It can be long-standing or recent. Terry displayed self-neglecting behaviours. He was not attending to his own hygiene and basic care. He turned down services to support his drug issues, his mental health, and he declined to seek medical help for his open wounds. Staff of the supported accommodation correctly raised a safeguarding concern regarding this self-neglect, particularly around Terry declining medical help for his wounds. These had become infected and were making him increasingly physically unwell. The Kent and Medway self-neglect protocols detail the requirements of a multi-agency meeting when self-neglect has been identified, and a multi-agency approach to support someone who is self-neglecting. The protocols state, the agency who identifies concerns must consider arranging a multi-agency self-neglect and hoarding initial discussion with other appropriate agencies. During this discussion, the agency who identifies concerns must present the overview of the case or the concerns. Relevant agencies must then share information and record such information in lieu of a separate referral. Risks must then be reviewed and considered against specific vulnerabilities. At this point, a lead agency would be identified, and the agencies at the meeting would create an initial action plan and review period, but this would be owned by the lead agency. Minutes and actions must be recorded by the agency who identified the concerns and then shared with the other attendees. And any future meetings will then be arranged by the agreed lead agency. As the protocols state, any agency can and should coordinate the initial multi-agency meeting. And staff working within supported accommodation are well placed to be the coordinator of this initial multi-agency discussion, as they are likely to hold the most information about the self-neglecting person's behaviours. If agencies do not engage with the multi-agency process, the Kent and Medway Safeguarding Adult Board escalation policy should be followed. The housing provider could have also utilised this policy when they did not feel the safeguarding concern that they raised triggered a suitable response. Professionals on various occasions deemed Terry to have capacity. However, there is recent case law which draws attention to the question of capacity and alcohol misuse. In this case, it was found a person can be seen to lack capacity if, when weighing up information, they are unable to appreciate that they have no control over their alcohol intake. This case could be reflected in Terry's case. Terry did not want to engage with drug and alcohol services and insisted that he was able to abstain from drug use when he was ready, despite evidence to the contrary, spanning many years. The case law in question raised two key points. First, that a person's capacity should not be the critical question, rather the impact of the continued drinking or drug taking upon their capacity to make other relevant decisions that will be significant to their wider health. Secondly, is their inability to understand, retain, or weigh these risks due to the impact of their sustained alcohol or drug use. If this is the case, it should be found that the person's alcohol or drug dependence means that they do not have capacity to make decisions. The question for Terry should have therefore been whether he understood the consequences of not having his infected sites tended to, and whether his ongoing drug use caused a lack of understanding of the consequences of accessing healthcare for these infected wounds. It could be argued in hindsight that he did not have the ability to weigh up and understand the consequences of refusing medical attention. The Kent and Medway Joint Working Protocol for Co-occurring mental health and substance misuse disorders could have also been deemed relevant to Terry's circumstances. Although this protocol was introduced in early 2023, it replaces a dual diagnosis protocol with the same principles of joined-up care planning. The protocol supports pathways for people with mental health issues and drug or alcohol misuse issues. There is no mention of this pathway being considered when Terry declined support from drug and alcohol services, despite having ongoing issues. And although risks were identified and assessed by independent agencies, there appeared to be a lack of joined-up working in the assessment of this risk, but also in the approach to manage these risks. Terry's GP stated that it was generally felt that Terry was making unwise decisions, which the Mental Capacity Act advises individuals have the right to do. What is often forgotten when people are deemed to have the capacity to make unwise decisions is that they will still require support to reduce the impact of these unwise decisions and/or support to change this mindset in the future. These matters could have been the basis for a multi-agency discussion, which the staff of Terry's accommodation could have coordinated. Learning from this review is similar to the learning from SAR Elizabeth Eastleigh, which can be found on the Kent and Medway Safeguarding Adult Board website, along with all other published SARs, including Terry's report. Thank you for listening.